live on Instagram and Facebook. Welcome to the Ask a Swim Pro show. We're here every Tuesday morning asking your swimming questions. What's up? We're here with Ferris, CEO and co-founder of My Swim Pro.
And we're here with Paige Walters. What's going on, everybody? This is the Ask a Swim Pro show. We got some fans tuning in. Tell us where you're coming from. Give us the wave. Hello. What's going on? We see people are joining in. Let's hear your swimming questions. We have an exciting topic. Oh, look at all the hearts. People are just dropping in the hearts. Give us the wave back. Hello. What's going on? How you doing? I'm looking for. Hey, is that Marcelo joined the Instagram live. What's up, Marcelo? I don't see. No one's coming in on Facebook. What's happening? I don't see anyone. But we got Marcelo. How you doing from Brazil? A few people from Brazil. What's going on? Coming at us from South America. Awesome. All right, while you guys are joining on the feed, we are going to get right into today's topic. Today's conversation for the Ask a Swim Pro show is how you should swim different races. So if you're doing the 50 freestyle, it's obviously different than the 500 freestyle, and then you execute the mile a little bit differently, which is also different from doing the 400 IM or the 100 IM or the 50 breaststroke. So before we even get into that, Paige, what is your favorite event?
I love the 100 free and the 200 free.
100
sure.
free and 200 free
Yep.
style. Not the 5?
No, not really the 5. No. 200 free is like the perfect challenge. You still get to swim fast, but it's there's a lot of strategy behind preserving your energy. That's what I like about it. What about you?
I like breaststroke. So I like the 100 breaststroke. I like the 50 breaststroke. I like the 100 IM. I like the shorter stuff. I used to like the 200 breaststroke, but to really be good at that, you have to train a lot, and I'm not training enough to be good at a 200 breaststroke. Well, it's a long comment.
Back in the glory
days. Suggestions to swim for a swim camp for my 13-year-old. Swim camps are great. Not really sure where you're located, but normally there's a bunch that tour around the country. Biggest thing with a swim camp, to answer your question directly, is making sure that your swimmer is really consistent in their workout routine going into the camp, so it's not just we're going to go to the swim camp and then have the expectation that we're all of a sudden going to get a lot better. So really working with like your existing team and coach, very consistent, and then you go to the swim camp and maybe you can polish on a few different things and then take that and then reapply it to your training that you're doing like back at your normal club team. So just having the right expectations is really, really important. So Paige, follow up to your response. What 100 and 200 freestyle, so do you prefer short course or long course?
I like short course.
Short course.
Yeah, I feel like the more, I don't know, I like short course. I feel like I can, I train regularly in short course. I like having more flip turns.
Flip turns, short course yards or short course meters, yeah.
Yep.
If you had to pick, meters or yards?
Yards.
Yards? Yeah.
That's usually what I'm used to.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm a short course yards person, but racing, breaststroke, I would rather do that long course. Yeah.
Huh. Why is that?
Because in breaststroke, I don't take that many strokes in the short course pool with a pull out, and so you don't actually spend a lot of time swimming the stroke. Mm-hmm. So in a 50 long course, it's a completely different event than doing a 50 in short course, especially in breaststroke. In freestyle, it's a little bit more similar, but in breaststroke, I'll only take 5 strokes of length in short course, and long course I have to take 20.
Yeah.
So it's literally twice as much swimming for a 50 distance, which is pretty significantly different. How can I avoid cramps during training? That's you want to take that one?
Cramps?
Cramps. Maybe food cramps, or you're eating too much right before you're...
Yeah, so cramps, you can, help avoid cramps by having a better diet. Bananas are always good. I feel like bananas help with cramps, at least in
Bananas are good. Hydration, I think.
Yep, hydration. Your diet is, make sure you're eating healthy, you're drinking enough water. You also want to be sure that you're stretching and you're warming up properly before before your swim. Yep. So warm up is everything. And the looser you can get your body before a hard workout, then you're going to be able to, protect your muscles, I guess, a little more.
So Marcelo is waiting for the My Swim Pro swimming camp in Rio de Janeiro. Marcelo coming to us from Instagram. Hey, it's coming, man. Just got to hang tight. Yeah. It's coming.
I love that. Leave us a comment of where you want a My Swim Pro camp.
Brian giving us a shout out from the Philippines. We had someone, salam, and then Julian Okay, so we just answered your question. All right, so let's go back into the topic for today, which we're talking about is race strategy depending on your event. So what do you think the biggest difference is between a 50 freestyle and a 1500 when it comes to like executing the race? Like, what's the race plan?
Man.
Those are like two different events, but it's freestyle. They're both freestyle. So what's the biggest?
I'd say first of all, your breathing. 50 free, a big part of that is focusing on, how many breaths you're taking, where you're taking your breaths, if you are at all. Some people do, some people don't.
It's a 50, don't breathe.
Yeah.
Do not need the air.
And with a 1500, it's all about just preserving your energy for the right time. So you don't want to come out too fast, you don't want to go too slow. It's kind of an experiment. And what I love about the longer events too is you don't really always know how you're going to end up. Like, it's such a long race. There's so many variables into how you're going to show up. And then when you're done with the race, you're like, oh man, like that was awesome. I dropped time. Or I don't know. It's a little more mysterious, I guess.
Yeah. No, those are two different animals. So either like a fast twitch 50 person where it's like she said, like no breathing, or maybe you plan out your breathing pattern and you just like go as fast as you can. And the 1500 is definitely more of like a rhythm type of thing, and then pacing becomes a lot more important. And you might have a strategy. People swim the 1500 a little bit differently. Some people try and build into a rhythm the first 200 and then just try and hold that for the next, 1,000-ish meters. And then other people like to break it up into 3 500s. So there's a lot of different ways. Even the 500, or if you're in swimming outside the U.S., it's a 400. People swim that a little bit differently. Some people do the 400 as 4 100s. Other people try and negative split it at the 200 mark. And similarly in the 1500, people try and negative split it. So negative splitting, really quick, is where you go faster on the second half than you do on the first half. And it goes back to what Paige was saying about preserving your energy in the beginning, so that way you can really swim easy with easy speed, preserve your energy, and have like really good technique. And then you can apply the speed on the second half and really try and empty your gas tank when you get to that point. So
what I also like for the 200 free, which I used to swim pretty often, even if you're just doing freestyle, your stroke is very different depending on your pace, right?
Yeah.
So I guess would you have any tips for how is your stroke going to be different in a fast 50 free race versus a 200 versus a 1,000 or 500? How
like the mechanics of it?
Yep. Yeah. So are you? I mean, you're obviously going to move your arms quicker, but what about your stroke is specific?
Yeah, so your stroke tempo is the shorter the race, the stroke tempo gets faster. So if you look at a 50 freestyle, the stroke tempo is like you're trying to hold water and move your arms as fast as you can. Compare that to a longer event, the stroke tempo is slower. Also, the distance per stroke you get, because if you remember the swimming equation, it's a direct proportion of how long your stroke is and your tempo. So in a longer race, you'll see people really stretched out in their stroke and gliding on every stroke, trying to like elongate what they're doing much more so. And then also the kick mechanics are a lot different. So in the 50 freestyle or 100 freestyle, it's a really consistent 6-beat kick, meaning for every 2 arm cycles, you have 6 kicks, so 3 kicks per stroke. And you see a lot of white water behind a swimmer in like a 50 and 100 or even a 200 freestyle. And then if you move into the longer events like the 1500 or an open water, you might see people and they're dragging their legs. So it looks like they're not even kicking, or they have a 2-beat kick, so they have 1 kick for every stroke that they take. That's how I swim actually when I'm swimming distance, anything over like 100 or even anything over a 200. A lot of people transition into a 2-beat kick. And it's really a balance. So like some people do have a 6-beat kick throughout a 1500. Really what happens is in the race is what you're going to be able to do from your training. So if you train a certain way, like if you train to have a 6-beat kick in the mile in workout, then in a competition you're going to be able to do that. And if not, you're not going to be able to do that. So that's freestyles, it's a tricky one because there is such a variation. Oh, the other thing with freestyle that varies a lot between like a 50 up to a mile or more is like where the power comes from. So if you're swimming a 50, there's a lot more like body driven. So like your shoulders are doing a lot more work. It's a lot flatter of a stroke. Like you're not rotating as much. It's a lot more powerful stroke. And if you compare that with distance swimming, anything over 400, 500 meters, it's a lot more hip-driven rotation. So you're relying on your hips and your core to really rotate your body, and that's how you get more extension and therefore a longer distance per stroke. So a lot of different things going on between the different distances.
What about the differences between a 50 and 100?
Oh, a 50 and 100. So I would say you still have the difference where like tempo is faster in a 50. The biggest difference I see when it comes to trying to like execute is your breathing pattern. So in a 50, depending on your level of swimming, you can either do the 50 in 0 breaths or 1 breath or 2 breaths. So if you're at that elite level, like you're just not breathing in the 50. And then in the 100, you might have a breathing pattern of every 4 strokes. And we were just talking about this with Mike, who's training for his first nationals. In the 100, it's a little counterintuitive, but actually when you start to get tired, you actually don't necessarily want to breathe more. So like you want to be very consistent with your breathing pattern throughout the 100. So you might not feel like you need to breathe every 4 strokes in the beginning, but if you don't do that, you'll be dead by the time you get to the end. So if you're racing for like a minute, you're not going to be able to hold your stroke tempo and intensity for that period of time. So breathing is probably the biggest difference besides tempo. And if you're not as competitive, if you need to breathe maybe 5 times or more in the 50 freestyle, then maybe in the 100, your breathing pattern is every 2 strokes, every 2 or every 4, or alternating.
Would you recommend breaking up each 25 with a different breathing pattern?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, it really depends on like your level of swimming. So if you train like every single day, you should be able to do the same breathing pattern throughout the 100. If you're not as consistent with your training, then you might need to, divvy it up. And so I would say rather than focusing on each 25, maybe you could focus on not breathing like inside the flags. So that way, like when you come off the wall, you're not taking, especially off a dive, like that's the worst thing you can do is you take a breath when you first dive into the water. Like you don't need it. You just started the race. You don't need to breathe. And then also like going into the turn and off the turn is the fastest part. So if you're racing in short course,
maximize your turn.
You have 4 streamlines, so you got to take advantage of them. So
cool. Awesome. Well, we have some questions. We're going to scroll through here on Instagram.
Let's get some questions before we go. Someone's asking, are you faster than Michael Phelps? I don't know. I'll challenge him if I have fins and he doesn't. We'll race. He'll still probably beat me, but we'll take it down for a showdown. Someone's got a question mark. You got to give us a question before the question mark. Come on.
So we have someone asking, what's a good breakfast food for before a swim meet?
Breakfast.
What do you eat? Before a morning swim meet? That's what she's asking.
Yeah, you don't want to have anything heavy. So having a steak and eggs for breakfast might not be the best thing. But a banana and a bagel, get some basic
some carbs and some protein. I like protein in the morning, like
scrambled eggs.
Yeah.
The key is don't do anything very drastic from what you're used to doing. So if you're not used to eating anything for breakfast, don't eat a huge meal. And if you're used to eating a lot, you probably need to eat a decent amount for your body to feel ready. Otherwise, if you go too far outside your normal routine, that's not going to be very good for you. So just try and keep it somewhat consistent. Don't overthink it. Hydrate, a little bit of protein, a little bit of carbs.
Yeah. I usually have like 2 eggs, maybe a piece of toast, some avocado. And then I would bring some snacks like a banana, a protein bar. I really like RX bars. RX bars are really good. Cliff bars, Luna bars, and
get that goo protein, or goo energy. Goo energy. All right, so we have a question. What's the difference in training for a triathlon versus, normal swimming? So swimming is swimming, but triathlon's a little different because most of the time you're going to be doing open water. And so let's say you're training for a triathlon in the pool and you don't have access to open water until maybe race day, and most of your training is going to be done in the pool. That's totally okay because depending on your level of swimming, learning the right technique and getting the aerobic foundation in the pool is just as good or even better as if you were to go to open water, because you need to focus on your technique anyway. But there are some things that you'd want to practice beforehand. So one of them is sighting. So what you can do is you can practice every 4 or 6 strokes. You lift your head up and you breathe, practicing what you would do in open water as if you were doing a triathlon. So that's one thing you can do. You can do a whole set. Like let's say you're going to do 4 100s. where on every single length of the 100, you're going to lift your head up and spot twice. So you might have to breathe, every 6 strokes, you're going to focus and spot. And maybe you have like a cone on the side of the pool. So that's one drill that you can do in a pool to get yourself ready for open water. The thing that really panics a lot of people when they do open water triathlon for the first time is doing the fact that you're with a lot of other people at the same time.
It's crowded.
So like if you can and you're training with other people, if you all swim in the same lane at the same time and you all push off, so you have 4 people next to each other in the lane, that'll get you the feeling of like craziness that you'd have in the beginning of a race. The other thing that would be somewhat new is having the cold temperature. So if you're not used to like that, when you have a new environment, it's cold, there's hundreds of other people, there's seaweed, like you don't want to be there, you'd rather be at home in a warm bed. So that's one thing that's hard to get ready for. That's more of a mental thing. So you just have to know, like before you start a workout, like, okay, this is a controlled environment, but on race day, it's going to be colder.
Yeah.
Just know that's going to happen.
And if you can, try to swim at the venue of the race beforehand. What also kind of trips me up sometimes when I swim open water is having really muddy water. Like it's not clear. And not having that black line at the bottom of the pool really kind of trips you up. So practice swimming in that lake or ocean before the race and you'll feel a little bit more comfortable. Cool.
Let's talk about the IM. So training, let's say you're going to compete in the IM. So you've got the 100 IM, the 200 IM, the 400 IM. And some people wish there was an 800 IM, but there's not an 800 IM. Don't worry about it. So what do you think the biggest difference is between the IMs and like how you would approach 100 versus a 400 IM?
Oh man, 400 IM is rough.
400 IM is a nightmare.
Well, let's see.
I can say that because I've done the 400 IM in collegiate competition multiple times. I have the right to say it's a horrible event because I've done it.
Yep. Yeah, I think you might have better advice than I do, but I like to maximize my stroke that I feel most comfortable in and that I'm best at. So if I'm a breaststroker in a freestyle, I am going to try to use as much energy as I can on those. And I know I can swim fast in that. The others might be my kind of rest, my rest period.
Hang in there.
Yeah, so breaking it up by like which stroke I like better, I feel like I do that. I don't know if that's like preferred.
Yeah, that's one way of doing it. So I think the biggest difference between like 100 and a 400 is like your intensity. So in 100, so 100 you can only do in short course, obviously. You can't do that in long course. But in 100 in short course, the walls are really important because you get like one push for the stroke and you get a pull out or the underwater dolphin kick. So you really have to maximize that and be really explosive. You can't just hang out underwater. It's 100. So if your underwater dolphin kick isn't good, you shouldn't be kicking that much under. You just got to get up and start swimming. So the 100 is like 425 sprint basically, trying to really execute each 25 on its own, and you just put them together to make 100 IM. So
I love the breaststroke transition. Like when you switch
breast
over
to free or back to breast.
Back to breast.
Back to breast. Okay,
I love that. I feel like once you hit that breaststroke, I'm just like, all right, we're getting there.
Yeah, that pull-out feels great.
Yep.
I didn't have a good pull-out, but the pull-out feels great after backstroke.
Yeah.
And so 400 IM, which is the other extreme, pacing is really important. So the best advice I've ever gotten, I always tell everyone for the 400 IM, is you want a negative split each 100 within the 400 IM. So you treat the 400 IM as 4 100s, one of each stroke. And then you want to feel like you're negative splitting it, so that way you can pace yourself appropriately. So the only time you won't negative split is on the first 100 because you dive in with butterfly and then you're fresh. So like the first 50, easy, second 50 is hard. And then you're on backstroke. First 50, easy, second 50, you pick up your tempo. Third 50, or when you're on breaststroke, the third 100, it's easy, and then the second 50 of the 100 breaths is hard. And then freestyle is the same thing. You're building up the first 50, and then you go as hard as you can at the end. The 200 IM is sort of a mix in between, so you're going a little bit more intensity, but you still want to feel like you're building each 50, negative splitting each 50 within the 200 IM. And if you look at the best swimmers in the world, like if you look at Michael Phelps' world record in the 400 IM, he actually does negative split every single 50. So the second 50 is faster than the first 50. So if you watch a lot of really good swimmers, they're able to negative split it like that.
I think what's also crucial, it's simple, but your last your last 25 should always be you're pushing as hard as you can. You're going putting all full intensity into that. Because at the end, you're done. You don't have to preserve any more energy.
You gotta finish.
And I remember, speaking to some beginner swimmers, and they're like, they're tired at the last length, but you gotta sprint it. Like, that should be a full 100% sprint.
If you can get out of the pool, you didn't put enough energy into the race. Like, someone should have to literally drag you out of the water. If you finish and then boom, you hop out and you're good. Well, why didn't you put all that energy into the race? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Unless it was a 50, you kind of get off the hook. You should have a little bit of energy in the 50. But if it's anything over a 50, you should be spent.
What about this? What happens? This is kind of off topic. What happens if your goggles fall off when you dive in? What do you do?
Tough luck.
What if they roll down and they're like stuck here on your mouth?
You just got to keep going. You can't let a little setback. I mean, it sucks. Ideally, your goggles stay on your face. But just think about the fact that you've probably already done that. Even if it's your first time racing that specific event, you've probably done that stroke so many times in workout or before. So it's not like you're going to forget how to swim if your goggles fall off, right? So you don't necessarily need to see where you're going. There are plenty of blind swimmers who swim. You
can certainly open your eyes underwater.
Yeah, in worst case, you can open your eyes to make sure you don't nail the wall.
Yeah.
But if you've been swimming for any decent period of time, initially you're going to panic, but you just need to control yourself and remember the fact that you've done either that race or that stroke so many times that you can do everything without your goggles on your face. Now, if they go on your mouth, you might need to improvise and you might need to sneak up a hand depending what the scenario is. But again, if you break out of your stroke, you might get DQ'd. So best case scenario, your goggles stay on and you tighten them. But if they do fall off, don't panic. Try and keep your cool. Things happen. But Michael Phelps in 2008 Olympics, 200 butterfly, his goggles completely filled up with water for the whole 200 fly, and he still broke the world record. And actually you can see it. He finishes, two-hand touch, he finishes the race, and then he lifts his goggles out, and you can see the water, and his eyes are red as can be. He opens up his goggles. You can see that the water was completely in there. At that level, though, he knows exactly how many strokes he's going to take. The goggles are just a nice to have.
Yeah.
But he didn't panic. He kept his cool. He's probably in his head. He's like, well, this is not great, but I've done the 200 fly hundreds, if not thousands of times. So he knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah. What are some good starts and turns drills and practices you can do before a swim meet?
At the meet, do you mean, or?
No, the week, a couple weeks before a big meet. Nationals is this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
What could I be, I know it's kind of taper right now, but what could I be doing to tune up my starts and turns?
Ooh, so that's any kind of technical skill, you have to be really, precise when you're doing it. So it's it's better to do 10 really good dives than to do 30 not as good dives. So you don't need to necessarily practice more of them, but just have a lot of focus on the specific one that you're doing. So you want to mimic a race scenario. So rather than diving off the side or not being very serious, just kind of diving in, if you can simulate what it would be like in a race, so you have someone starting you, or you're rested and you're not tired when you actually do the dive itself. That's actually one of the most helpful things. And then in terms of skills, there's a lot of skills. You can practice your entry by having a pull buoy between your feet on the dive, and then diving in and trying to maintain the pull buoy from leaving your feet. So that's a cool drill that you can do to focus on that part. You can also do a drill where you dive in, and then you don't do any kicking, and you see how far you float just off of your momentum off the dive. And that focuses on getting a really good posture in the water, good streamline, and then not making a lot of splash when your body hits the water. So that's another one. Yeah,
we've also done, you bring a hula hoop and put it on the water and try to target, that's your area where you're going to dive in.
Dive far.
Yeah, dive far.
Like the circus.
Yeah, another good drill for working on your turns is starting just a little bit outside of the flags. Start from you're sitting there, and then it's a hard sprint in. And if you can master your stroke count of how many strokes you need for each stroke to get to the wall, that's going to really help. So just breaking up the turns and not swimming the full length, just doing the last quarter of it will help.
I like that. I love swimming. 30 exclamation points. Awesome. Aziz, Katie, give us a question. We need a question. All right, any more questions? We're about to sign off soon. You guys have been an outstanding audience, like usual. So if you guys have any other questions. Okay, so we didn't talk about strokes. Final topic here. Let's say you're doing a 50 butterfly versus a 100 butterfly versus a 200 butterfly. Oh. So what first of all, 200 butterfly is a really rough event. 200
Oh my
fly
gosh.
is such a horrible event. Speaking of Michael Phelps, yeah, he could do a 200 fly fine. I don't know, but the 50 fly is a fun one because I think it's similar to the 50 in that you're not really breathing a lot.
Yep.
And I think that actually might be one of the biggest differences between the 50 fly and the 200 fly is like your breath control, because in the 50 fly, you don't need to breathe that much. If you're doing it in short course, you get to breathe on the turn, and then you're just trying to tempo and grab water. The 200 fly, like your pace is so much more important, and you have to have like a breathing pattern. You can't just not breathe in the 200 fly; you will die. Like I don't want to come to your funeral for the 200 fly. Like you need to have like a lot of people breathe every stroke in the 200 fly, or they breathe every 2 strokes. So if you're not doing that, you're probably going to die. I don't think I've ever seen anyone go 3 strokes breath, 3 strokes breath in a 200 fly. If that's what you do, you should leave it in the comments, because I would love to watch you do a 200 fly. You're probably not moving that fast to conserve.
But there's nothing better than swimming fly when you're fresh and you're not tired. That's why I love it. Like the 50 fly, you just glide and like when you're feeling good, it's fun. But as soon as you hit that 200, you're tired. Yeah.
All right, last question here, and then we'll sign off. So, backstroke start.
Oh, nice.
Diving backwards on the backstroke start. Okay, so the backstroke start is actually not that much different than diving off the block. Like the most important thing is getting your body in streamline before you hit the water. So that's the same as like when you dive off the block, or if you're starting in the water. The difference is when you're on the block, your entire body is already dry and you're already elevated. When you're in the water, you have to create that elevation by lifting yourself out of the water. So there's different ways that you can position yourself on the actual diving block when you're doing backstroke. Whatever is most comfortable, so that when the beep goes off, you can get your body up and out of the water and into streamline. Because it doesn't matter how high you can lift yourself or like how fast you react. If you're not hitting the water in streamline and you're not able to arch your body over the water, then it doesn't really matter. And then once you're in the water, it's the same as freestyle. You're in streamline, you're dolphin kicking, and then you break out. Anything want to drop on that?
No, you're good.
All right, that's hello from Brazil. What's going on? I see some Russian. I can't read Russian. Sorry, guys. I don't know any Russian.
Awesome. So this weekend we'll be racing in Indianapolis. We'll be going live a couple times, probably every day, so tune in. We'll do some live meet coverage, talking to people on the pool deck. We'll be racing too, so we'll let you know how it goes. Yeah. And if you're there at Masters Nationals, we'd love to see you. Come say hi.
We're going to be in Indianapolis, Indiana. So if you guys are anywhere within several hundred miles, you should come to Indianapolis and hang out with us at the meet.
Awesome.
All right, that's the Ask a Swim Pro show. We'll see you guys in Indianapolis. Later.